morning. The principal of St. Jago High School is online. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good.
And
Good to
somebody's
be
asked me,
here.
who is the principal? She's actually the
I'm
acting principal,
I'm
Antoinette
acting.
Wright.
Yes.
And Antoinette Wright, Dallen. I know this is not Ali, that is Ali, this is Antoinette Wright, Dallen, the acting head of St. Jago High. I want to give you like a shocker. My friend was the principal at one time. I'm sure if you know about Keith Noel.
Of course, he was my principal while I was here at St.
But
Jago.
hold off. When you telling me that you're a student there,
Yes.
I know you're moving, you're like you're to turn principal. Oh, I'm proud of you, ma'am. So imagine Keith Noel train and groom a student who is now the acting principal. What a thing.
Yes.
And your
One of
principal,
my
what's your principal?
principal.
Yes, your principal's name.
Yes.
What's your principal name? She's on
Oh,
leave.
that would be Mrs. Colette Furtado Price.
And she's on leave.
Yes, 8 months vacation leave. Well
I hope
deserved.
she's taking a good rest because people don't
She
understand.
is.
I always say, if teachers worked from January to December and no break, then if you have one child and you have headache, can you imagine a teacher with 20, 30, 40 every day? They will all end up in Bellevue after a while.
And a principal with one over 1,500.
My God. And everybody,
Yes.
somebody is calling you. It is a great effort to have you on this morning. I know that. Last time I tried to
Yes.
get you, you were in a meeting dealing with this. So I do. So I thank you for being here this afternoon. Now, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, I've learned a bit already. You went to jail. But tell me your whole life story. Where are you from? I hope you're from country. I
No,
hope you come from
I'm from
Chilani.
Spanish Town. I'm from Spanish Town.
Lord, my shall come from Chilani, man.
No. Born and grew in Spanish Town. Everything happened in Spanish Town for me. So I went to St. Catherine Primary,
Yes.
and then I passed for St. Jago High. My family, we are St. Jago people. So
I hear you.
my
Yeah.
mother is a past student. My uncle on my father's side, past student. My uncles on my mother's side. My aunt on my mother's side, all past students.
So we will have to name the school after your family. It's just amazing. Now, I must tell you, you caught my attention when we will be concentrating on that today. When I heard you on television stating, giving reasons for you withdrawing your team from the quiz competition. And I gather that's a school position. I know, well, like I know your family, or they grow you up and so that was expected. But just mention that a bit, how the school functions, about honesty and integrity.
Well, we have core values which speak to strength, tenacity, being judicious,
Yes,
ambitious, gracious, and optimistic. So once we are involved in anything as a school, we try to make sure that we exhibit integrity and good sportsmanship. So once we realized that there was an issue and it was a breach on our part, not deliberate, it wasn't deliberate,
yes.
and we discussed it, there was no other option. And I said to other persons who asked, it doesn't matter who's sitting in the chair as principal, the answer or the decision would have always been the same. Because
Now,
once we are in anything at all, we are about winning, but we win fairly. That's what we are about.
I'm almost sure I heard somebody in the corner saying, "What a woman fool."
Well, it is not the norm for people to be honest, sadly, in this society. But it doesn't negate what we are, and that's how we operate as a school.
So,
So even when we had to announce to the school what we were doing, the students understood, the team members
really,
understood. Yes, they did.
that's
Of course, they
amazing.
wanted to know why. You know,
Yes, yes,
they
yes.
wanted to know why. We explained why. Afterwards, they understood, and we continue. So it's something that we are learning from. We want to make sure that something like that doesn't happen in the future for us. But whatever
Yes,
we do, if we're doing the performing arts, if we are doing academics, if we are doing sports, We are about good sportsmanship. We are about
Mhm.
integrity. We are about honesty. And our children know this. Our
Oh,
parents know this.
so it means therefore the business looking for graduates with integrity. You may get jealous now, you know. They're gonna be looking for St. Jacob students
They
and
should be. They
mm,
should be. They should
yes,
be.
yes.
No one is perfect, but
Right, right.
we try to make sure that our
Mhm.
students are respectful, and then that when they occupy a space, they bring something positive to it. And if they can't, if there's a problem, the idea is, how can I be a solution here? How can I make this better? And a part of making things better is being
Yes,
honest, is
yes,
being true. So there are some people who won't understand it. There are some
yes.
people who might say that it's a stupid course of action.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, we can honestly say we did the right thing.
And I want to endorse that. And that is why you see in Jamaica, oftentimes we get persons who are of a questionable character becoming superstars. And that is why I have you here today, because I would love the school to become known internationally, and also you and all the principals to become superstars. Because I believe part of the way of moving Jamaica forward is when persons like you and the principal become superstars, then you become somebody who the nation can look up to. No, you understand. I know you're quite humble and you weren't keen to come on, but if we can have somebody good like you in a good school, we're not hearing more about you. No, man. But we'll have
A
about
behind
three.
the scenes person.
No, 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 sorry. There are people who have nothing to offer. They're all over there in the newspapers every day. They're on television, radio, and the young people are bombarded with the thinking and the philosophies of these people. And we need to change that. We have about 3 more minutes before we take a little break, and we're going to come back and log on back. Now, tell me a little bit about yourself. And you went to St. Jago High. We went after that, and tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, as I said before, I started off at St. Catherine Primary,
Yes.
and of course, St. Catherine Primary is a church school, so respect there. Um, I went on to St. Jago High School,
Yes.
and funnily, there are persons who taught me who I now supervise, and
No, but
I,
you're
I
not telling the truth.
no, it's true.
Interesting.
Yes, and I always say to them that if they had done a poor job, they would be in trouble now.
Ah,
Because they would be in trouble now because of
yes, but they
us.
prepared you so well.
Right.
Yes,
And again, this whole thing of respect and care and ensuring that as a student, even when you're not confident, to build confidence.
yes.
And so I was well equipped and then went off to University of the West Indies, wanted to do law, ended up in literature.
Okay.
And that's my love. I love literature.
Mhm.
And afterwards, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And my mom said, "Why don't you do teaching?" So I started teaching 26 years ago at Ensom City Primary and Junior High School,
Okay, yes.
and I taught language and literature. And then there was an opening at St. Jago, and I applied, and Mr. Noel did the interview.
Who was my friend, Keith Noel? I acted with him. Yeah, he was an outstanding actor. Yes.
He did the interview, and we are both Anglicans. And I will say to persons that his interview technique was so unusual because we were there chatting about church. Because at the time, I was
Yes.
involved in Anglican Youth Fellowship. I'm Anglican, he's Anglican.
Yes.
And, I was giving him some advice about his young people and stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
And I was asking him, "So when does the interview start?" And he says, "Oh, this was the interview." And I was like, "Oh."
Oh, yes.
So, I got the job teaching language and literature and general paper, then Caribbean studies. So in teaching, I've taught from first to fifth. I also taught communication studies at
Yeah.
sixth
We're going to go
form,
for the break
Caribbean
shortly.
studies. Okay.
Let's make a final point and we'll go for the break. I was going to ask to go for make your final point. Anyway,
Oh,
let's
make
go
my final. Oh,
before
yes. So,
not final. That's final before we go for the break.
okay, so my big thing was also teaching literatures in English. So I love teaching, but the problem is when you're an administrator, you don't get to teach anymore.
And
So I
before you
miss that.
go sorry to have to cut you like that, but the good thing, good teachers should remain as teachers. So you appoint an administrator. The only thing I believe in, when you're a good teacher, your pay should go up so that if you love to teach, you stay there. I think it's a bad thing to take out your good teachers and turn them into administrators. Gotta go for the break. What a thing talking to this interesting acting principal. I never can tell you, might hear of her being a principal at another school or probably at that same school. Can you imagine? She was a student there. No, she's a principal, acting principal actually. Antoinette Wright, Dallen, acting head of St. Jago High. This is Spot On with Vernon Darby. My guest is Mrs. Antoinette Wright Dallen, acting head of St. Jago High. Yes, back to you again. Now, you mentioned about that interview, and I must tell you, it's a style that I do believe in. Many persons, you're there back with me?
Yes, I am.
Right. Now, you talk about that interview, which I think is the best way to do an interview. You have a conversation with a person rather than putting them through some questions like his examination. People are trained how to answer questions. But if you talk to somebody, that's the way I'm talking to you, know, you'll be surprised to know how much you can learn from them. But you mentioned about church. And I must tell you, I also went to a church school, and I love to show off and tell everybody, you know. But I say Vernon behave and go, and he knows how to behave and what to do. I'm very concerned that the church government has taken over quite a number of the schools, and it seems to me, I might be wrong, let me know, that there's less influence of the church in our schools. I'm very concerned. What is your position on that
I
matter?
don't think that there's less influence of the church. I think that we have to be mindful of the influence in terms of, okay, at my school, we are a church school. So the church established the school. Our church
Right, right.
has about 12 or so high schools.
Mhm.
And the influence is of such that things like values and attitudes,
Mhm.
respect, honesty, integrity.
But if I should
Um,
interrupt you, Madam Acting Principal, I'm speaking about those schools, and there are quite a number of them where then they're not operated by the church.
right. So that's what
That's,
I'm saying. But
mm,
even though they're not operated by the church, the
yes,
administration of the school
yes.
has within their power to engage persons who are from the church.
Hmm.
The difference, though, is that you don't want a situation where you're trying to convert people. You want a
Ah,
situation where persons are coming in to assist.
yes,
Someone
yes,
said recently that the most important gift that persons can give, especially to young people, is their presence, just
yes.
being there.
For them.
And we
Hmm.
have had so many situations happening in our schools, acts of violence, persons who have gone through trauma.
Oh,
And one of
yes,
the things that helps is not just the presence of the Ministry of Education officials, but also when people from the church can assist. Now, when I say assist, I'm not saying you're gonna go there to try and convert persons, but to comfort, to
hmm,
just be there, to offer a word.
to be
Uh,
counselors.
and persons do have the right to say that they don't want prayers, or they do have the right to say that they don't want this kind of religion. But
Oh,
the idea of just being there to support the school and the administration, or to send a word of encouragement
hmm,
to the teachers or
yes.
to the students, to say that, hey, God loves you. I've had students who they've written notes to say, Miss, God loves you. And knowing that that is a young person coming
Yeah,
into
yes,
themselves as a
yes,
Christian to
yes.
look at the principal and write a note to say, God loves you. or to
That
look at their
you must
teacher
feel like
and to,
jumping through the roof when they get that.
yes,
I can
yes.
just imagine.
Because you see it, and maybe they
Yeah.
don't even want it, because when you're a young Christian, you're like, boy, should I do this? God is
Yes.
saying, you're questioning. So when we can offer support to
Yes.
our young people, to our schools, it's important, without trying to convert persons, just to show that God is love and God's love is acting through me. And so I'm here for you.
Hmm.
That's it.
They probably win them over easier that way. Now, there's another matter which is a burning issue I have with me, which I'm strongly against. And by the way, you're free to express yourself in terms of concerns that you have about your educational system. But there's one strong concern that I have, is that we keep on promoting the children from class to class. And when they end up, they get what they call it, a certificate. Now, it doesn't matter whether they are competent at a particular grade or not. There are schools that if you have that challenge, you have to accept a child at the first form or grade 7, and that child cannot read or write. To me, you are wasting time promoting that child from class to class and probably end up frustrating that child when you put them in a grade 9 or grade 10 and they are not able to function at that level, and then they end up being labeled as dunce, which they're not probably dunce, it's just probably they have some challenges or they're just not mature enough to function at that level. What's your position on children being just promoted from class to class?
Okay, well, we have two issues here.
Yeah.
One, the question is, does the school have the resources to to um to create an intervention for that child? And it depends on the type of school. And
Yes.
two, there are schools where students are promoted. However, it is after intervention, or they're promoted into intervention.
Right, right.
So let's be real. Our education system does not allow for proper intervention to take place. However, we have many schools, and I don't like to use the term underperforming schools, because that is not the case.
Yes, that sounds like apartheid in education. I don't like it
Right.
either.
But what we
Once I
have,
interrupt you, there's another term, I hope you never use it, about traditional high schools and non-traditional high schools. That's come like when you're back in South Africa, talk about the blacks and the whites, and some people go there. No, man, we need to stop it. You continue.
well, you have some schools that have particular types of resources,
Right, right.
and it depends too, because you have some schools that they are new schools, meaning that they're not 50 years old, they're not 20 years old. And
Yes,
so the issue is now, when you have students, and normally when schools get students, they will do the assessment first thing to find out where the students are.
right.
Then the question is, do they have the space to do the intervention? Do they have the manpower to do the intervention? And then the type of intervention, because the students who you get are not the same. And that's what people keep thinking. Okay, you get 200 students, and in that 200, you might have 100 that are operating at the normal level, at the
Yes,
expected level. But then you have 100 students who 50 of those are pre-primer. That's before you get to basic school level. Then you
yes.
have some who are at grade 5 level or at grade 4 level. So you now have to have specialists. Is it a reading issue? Is it a numeracy issue? What kind of issue is it? And how
Sometimes a
can you,
psychological issue.
and the psychology, as well as
Yes,
certain things that may have happened previously to the child, is
yes.
impacting. There's also learning deficiencies that they may have. You might have a situation where the child is autistic, the child is dyslexic, the
And
child
let me ask you on that point. I realize that many of us out there, we don't recognize these things. I hope that teachers have been trained to recognize when a child is autistic. You don't have to be a psychologist.
well, let me be honest with you. It's
Yes,
not it's not it's not that teachers are not trained. Teachers have been trained,
yes,
but I don't think they're trained into the specifics. Maybe now that is happening in teachers' college, but I know
yes.
when I did my teaching diploma, I didn't know. It's only from my own experience of
Experience,
yeah.
right, right.
Right. And so, but the good thing is that now, as administrators, now as teachers, we know. I always say to my teachers, if something doesn't look right, report it. We need to have a look at it. So we have situations where students, when the teacher is marking their paper, they're realizing that the writing is illegible.
Hmm.
When you
Hmm.
check it out, there's a
Problem,
visual
yes.
impediment, or there's a situation where the student can explain themselves, but they cannot write, or they have a problem with decoding or encoding.
Yes.
So we have to do our due diligence in terms of training or in-house training of teachers so that they are aware. But at the end of the day, the only thing you can do is to move the child forward. So, as a school, you have to make a choice. Are you going to move the child forward as is, or are you going to put intervention strategies in place? And even there are instances, many schools, many principals will tell you that they have the intervention strategies, but they don't have the parent support, or the child is not compliant. And one of the reasons for that is this thing of the child, the parent being in denial, or the child being ashamed or in denial. So you have all of these strategies. We have strategies here at my institution,
Yes.
and to get children on track. And you'll find that some children are not going to go to the tutoring sessions.
But hear the
Sometimes,
joke now. We're going to take a little break now, but hear the joke now. I'm not saying we should embarrass the child, but at this point, a little embarrassment will kill them. Can you imagine they leave school at grade 11 and can't sign their name? And they become an adult. No, you will have permanent embarrassment.
but I don't think that that is necessarily the case, because I think most schools
Yes.
will have something that they're trying to do. Because before I started at St. Jago, the school I used to work at before, I
Mhm.
remember that we had a class where that's all the teacher was trying to do, make sure that they could read
Yes,
and
man.
write their names before they left. Before they did that grade 9 exam, they had to be literate, they had to be numerate. And it took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of time.
What I want you to do when I come back, I'm going to take a quick musical break and come back. We probably should look at, and instead of you probably need to come back next week again because you don't cover anything much. You're wondering about the time. But I'm very concerned about with teaching them, of course, you need to read and write here. But we are training these students physics, chemistry, maths, and what have you. And some of them, they're not interested, or some of them don't have the aptitude. But I have a past student who just so frustrated. And the boy trouble and she be to get him down. She don't joke. And they thought that she was just a troublemaker. I will call her name, but she's now an international artist and now a big time singer. So I think we need to understand that sometimes the children don't fit into the coursework that we are doing. And if we can find a way, which is what I did, although I was told that I was wasting time, had them doing drama in my classes and singing and
But
so
that's
on.
what we do here. That's what we do.
But in
We
my
try
time, I
to.
thought I was just wasting time.
No. Here.
Let me just cover the break. That is why you guys are involved in everything, cultural things.
Yes.
Sing. That I know anything I don't know. Let's just take a quick musical break and we come back and continue with the principal, the acting principal. Yes, I keep on saying principal. If I'm speaking it to me, I should do that actually. The
Just dealing with
acting,
it for a while.
yes, acting principal of St. Jago High. Boy, we learning quite a bit. Right, Dallen. Make sure that I pronounce her name correctly. Yes, I
Very
think
good.
I.
Yes.
Or else you might take a strap on beat this. So come back. Stay with us. My very special guest is Mrs. Antoinette Wright Dallen, the acting head of St. Jago High School. We just covered. So I must tell, I feel strongly if you don't have the intervention, then that child should continue at the level where they're at, because you're just going to frustrate them when you move them to grade 11 and get them a grade 11 work when they're really at grade 7. Now, since you're going to make a comment on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that even if they are moved, the teachers do try to adjust the curriculum to
Yes, yes, yes.
get them somewhere. The idea is by the time they're finished, they must have something to work with to make them productive in society. I believe that all schools try to do that. But the issue always is the lack of resources.
Lack of resources.
Yeah.
And I know part of the resources is paying teachers more, but touch that this afternoon. But I must say though that I have a challenge, as I told before, and if the child can read and write and do certain basic things, that's fine. But I find the parents are more concerned about children graduating and getting their certificate, not certificate, by the way, and and graduating in gowns and fancy hairstyle and so on, rather than the competences of that child. I'm very concerned.
Well,
But
I can tell you here, we don't do that. You have a specific criteria, and a part of that criteria is the basic, which is at least 5 subjects, as well as other criteria which have to do with their conduct,
what?
submission of SBAs, their attendance to school, attendance to classes. We take it very seriously because when
Oh, so
we
hold on,
present
you
them,
tell me something new. So you're telling me when a child leaves St. Jago and get there, so they don't get certificate, they get certificates. I see. So one can be assured that I'm getting a
yes,
well-rounded.
when we present them, we say these are the students of whom we are proud. So
Oh,
and we tell them we're not telling any lie here.
you're not telling it
So
less.
the criteria, and they know the criteria from their in fourth form. And what we do is that we say to them, in fifth form, you start a clean slate. So
Oh,
everybody has the opportunity, even if you did bad like yours. If you
where you know
turn
that term
over
from? You just born the other
new
day, bad
leaf,
like yours.
if you turn over a new leaf,
Yes.
and if you make the effort, we recognize the effort and we will say, okay, we recognize it. And so here's the opportunity for you to be presented. So we understand that the ceremony itself is a presentation. But you have some students who they're excluded from the ceremony. They still get their certificate, but they're excluded based on what they did.
Oh,
So
because
they
that
get
is
a couple,
important. If they get a
right?
certificate saying they are graduate and they really did graduate, I'm sure you didn't get a certificate telling you that you graduated from university. You did
No,
not.
no, it's not a graduation certificate. It's a school leaving certificate that
No,
they
no, you
get.
were me. No, you were me. I love it. So it's a school leaving. So,
Right.
I
So
see
all
what
of
you
them
mean.
leaving school, so they get the certificate.
I see what you mean.
But it is a privilege to participate in the ceremony. And
Yes,
we make a big to do about it. We explain what the expectations
yes.
are. It's not a secret. So when you
What I love though, is if you leave the school and you say you are at a grade 9 level, it will state that you are at grade 9 level. So then when you leave school, you can go back to another institution, probably adult institution, and you start off there. But when you leave and say you leave at grade 11, when you're really at grade 8 or grade 9, then you're fooling yourself and you're fooling society.
Well, I think that, as I said before, most schools try to
Yeah.
make sure that the students are prepared and work ready when they are leaving. So
I
our
tell you something though,
certificate,
ma'am, the results are not showing that. I don't
you
have all
know,
the figures with me,
we
but
could we could get in a discussion about that
that
because the formal testing doesn't mean that they are
I
not ready.
exactly. But I'm not talking about that because the formal testing, if you look where I come to the system, you never like exam at all. So
Yeah,
you are,
because there's such a thing as exam phobia, and we have had to be dealing with it in terms of preparing our students
yes.
for exams. Even the parents have exam phobia. So
No,
we
they
have,
don't. Hold on, let me stop you right there. Therefore, we are worse than the students, and then they turn around and put the students under even more pressure.
yeah, so we have to prepare them. We sensitize them, and
Yes.
we try and make sure we build and motivate the students.
Yes. Well, guess what? I'm in
Because,
trouble, I have to be
right, the
cut you like
time,
this. You were talking about time is too much. I know we realize that we didn't have enough time for you, although
indeed.
I've given you extended time. But back to that school now, and not to tell you about school, but generally, that school there, they seem to train people, expose them to everything as can be seen, the things they're involved with, sports, cultural things, you name it. So tell us about that. You're thinking on that and exposing children to a wide exposure. So when they leave there, whether if they're not good at English or maths or chemistry, they can fit into the society. Because I'm telling you, based upon some of the criminals you see out there, they are not fooling, and them in the well in school. So I'm telling you, if they were properly trained and groomed to become leaders, they could be far more productive to the society. You have about I have about 3 minutes or 2 minutes.
Okay, I believe that students need to be well-rounded. As
Yes.
human beings, we are not flat, we are round. Characters, they are round.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's important that not just the academics, but the artistic parts of persons. So if that's visual arts, if that's the performing arts, if that's music, if that's drama, if that is debating. And
Yes.
what happens is when people tap into that, they get more. Some of our most successful students are students who are involved in 4 or 5 different clubs. In fact, it's a requirement that every student at our school must be enrolled in at least 2 clubs or societies, because we realize that it is important for them not just to have the book work, but also be exposed to interacting with other people, teamwork,
Yes.
cooperation, learning to obey instructions, learning to fail, learning to do well, learning to present themselves. And so we have students who they are doing well, but they're also the captain of a sports team, or the
Yes.
captain of the
Ah,
debating
they learn
team,
how to
or
lead.
the student council president.
Well, I'm going to have to
So
cut you there, my man, tell you that we probably have to make sure that we get some more San Diego students out there in charge, because, or else we would have persons talking about
but we
he would
have
have
many of them
police.
in charge, sir.
No, no, we want more. If we had more, then we wouldn't have people talking about he would have pulled this gun, he would have promoted. When they get this, he would have. It does make sense. Or they talk about June 2nd, it's June 1, and you go to a function and they tell about all protocols observed. What do you mean by all protocols observed? That could go on and on. And it's very clear that many of those who lead in industry, they cannot communicate. They read, even in parliament, they read their speeches. Apparently they didn't do elocution and probably enter drama festival and those things. So I'm putting the same to you, but I'm not asking you. I've been around and know the people involved. More of them need to go to San Diego. I want to show off and put my school, but I won't do that in your program. Because I'm not impressed with our leaders communicate. Some of them are really pathetic. Even in the political arena, they can't communicate. They just make pure noise. And whoever expects, I'm telling you the truth. Education is not only about getting degrees and masters and doctorate. It's how you communicate effectively as a good leader. I must thank you very much. And no, you're going to say you didn't have enough time.
We didn't have enough time.
So we'll talk again, but because you know my position, I want my principals become stars. So thank you very much, Acting Principal Antoinette Wright Dallen, Acting Head of San Diego. Have a wonderful day.
And it was nice being with you.
Of course, I just enjoyed the conversation.